Well, hello, everyone. It's Bob Rivers here with another pop-up podcast. Tonight's, I think, is going to be interesting. We have some very cool people. We have two incredible industry professionals who are brilliant with good hearts. And then we have my son, Andrew Rivers, joining us as well. He's funny and also really smart, too, because it's in his DNA.
Let's not lie to anybody, yeah.
So let me introduce our panel. First off, Steve Stockman joins us. A lifelong friend. Steve is an author and filmmaker, and his book is called How to Shoot Video That Doesn't Suck. It's one of the best-selling books about shooting your own video that he's ever written. No, it's really one of the best anywhere, right, Steve?
Of all the books I've ever written, which includes
it's one of them. Yes.
It is the best-selling.
Yeah. More about that coming up. Maura Gallucci, journalist, newswoman, anchor at Cairo Radio for years, and also worked at KUOW. Really wonderful credentials. But perhaps her most embarrassing credential is that when she joined the Bob Rivers Show in, I think, 1998, 9-ish, we can't prove cause, but the show rocketed to #1 with your voice on the show, and always grateful for that.
Always curious that's true.
Oh, no, it was true. Believe me, they took it to the bank. And Maura currently you're testing the waters potentially for podcasting or going back to radio. Everyone wants Maura, by the way, but she's like playing.
I've got some feelers out. I've got some work over here.
Yeah. You're busy. And then my son, Andrew Rivers, who has, I don't know how many now, tens and tens of millions of views for his comedy clips on social media, does so well that he can book small theaters throughout the country and sell them just by buying ads from this guy named Mark Zuckerberg, who's such a cool guy. And welcome, Andrew.
Yes, I'm putting feelers out there also, and nobody will return my email. So
No.
I'm having the opposite reaction as Maura, but I'm happy to bring the show down so we cancel each other out, you know?
Good. Hey, Andrew, I love having you on.
We'll rocket to stasis.
Yes. Because, first off, having a younger generation's point of view on this wacky world that we live in, I think is really important. And since you do that point of view comedically for a living, we're going to have some fun. So, all right, what are we going to talk about today? Well, I sent a few things. And I also asked you guys, this is a totally free-form discussion, so it can go in any direction. I asked you guys, if you wanted to bring up anything, feel free. This main topic is called common logical fallacies. And Steve, did you have another name for it? What they call it in, Ivy League universities?
Yes, I think.
BS. That's correct. That's the technical term. That's the Latin for common logical fallacies.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
And what they are is techniques that are used that are basically bullshit. Techniques that are used to change your opinion, to bully you, to spin the truth. And by the way, if all of these things that I'm talking about sound familiar, isn't that what everything is these days? So I thought it would be fun for us to look at some of these, and I'll start with the one I was accused of doing to Steve. And this is a story where, I learned a new phrase, and I believe, I can't remember all the specifics, but I like to bait people about Elon Musk because I have a Tesla, and because I see Elon Musk as this universally hated guy in the media, and yet there's something interesting about him to me, in that he has done more for what we claim is an important thing, global warming, than any human being in history. He'll be the Gandhi of global warming when it comes down to writing human history. Who got the electric car made, right? Perhaps not Gandhi. So So anyway, I was talking to Steve, and I don't remember. Maybe you remember what I said, but you felt that I was kind of attacking you, not making an argument, and you called that ad hominem. Maura, you probably know
I
that
did.
term.
Yes. Yeah.
And I was like,
Very familiar with that.
I'm going to have to look that up. I don't know what that is. I've also been accused of straw man. I've been accused of about half of these. And probably just because
You've been
people
married
get
for
around.
40
I'd say
years, so
you're very good.
pretty much anything
Yeah.
that's possible, you've been called.
Well,
And honestly, we all do these. We all do these from time to time, right?
Maura, you're absolutely right. Yeah. We do it, but you do it for good for the liberal side.
True. This is true.
So let's start with ad hominem. Do you remember specifically what I was saying, or can we just get a general example of what ad hominem is?
Yeah, well, sure. Well, I was explaining that Elon Musk had single-handedly decimated the value of the asset of Twitter that he bought, and he was basically lighting it on fire for his own joy or weird, perverse sense of needing to be king of the nerds. I'm not really sure where he's going with it, but I quoted some articles.
Hold on, I'm looking at the things you're doing right
now.
now. Hasty generalization.
Sure.
Straw man.
That's
Keep going.
as far as I got now. But wait, I have to finish. Right?
Yeah. Oh, I'm
So
sorry. I interrupted again.
What I recall was I was quoting an article that I thought was quite good in the New York Times, and you were saying, "Oh, the liberal media has it all in for Musk." And so what you were doing is I was making a point about Musk's inability to successfully market social media business to Twitter, like Twitter to humans, which is kind of self-evident because he's failed miserably by every measure. And you were saying, oh, the New York Times, they're out to get him, and so are you, which is an ad hominem attack that doesn't address the substance of my argument. It attacks me and the New York Times instead.
And you said, I feel like that's an ad hominem argument. And I'll tell you what, you're right. Absolutely. That was, and I'd love to catch myself.
Well, that was an easy podcast. I feel like we're done.
Thank you, everybody.
And,
Yeah, thanks a lot. We'll see you guys
It's been
later.
fun.
Wait a minute. However,
However,
Can I say that was the nicest ad hominem attack I think you could have used as an example when you think about what's going on in our American politics right now?
Yeah.
I mean, you can't make an argument right or left without someone calling you
stupid for it.
You know. Yeah, exactly. Or ugly or
well, I was surprised at the time because Bob does a lot of this other stuff. He's definitely loves the straw man and loves the slippery slope, and but ad hominem was not his thing, and he seemed to be taking Elon Musk and his Tesla very personally. And so I was rather surprised because normally he's much better at baiting me in a
without getting
big
caught.
way, without getting all personal.
Without getting caught.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, without going off on too much of a tangent, where that came from is today when I read a newspaper article, and there's not, and we're going to try and not make this about politics because it's really about human beings and how we should all speak to each other more honestly and intellectually honest, and mostly one-on-one, not cable news. That their business model is divisive, inflaming people. So where this came from is that lately, because I'm retired and because I can afford it, I subscribe to like 6 newspapers. Steve got me on the Los Angeles Times, the Washington Post, the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times. And what I've noticed is I can read the first 2 paragraphs of an article, and I certainly know whether it's in the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times, just by the way things are spun or by a point that's trying to be made that fits one or the other of the 2 sides that we've been neatly divided into by, frankly, media, advertisers. They need to get our attention, and the only way to get our attention is to get us riled up, and then we have to pick a side. And I have this thing where I don't want to pick a side. And so it just irritates me because Steve sends me this article and I'm like, oh my God, another hit piece on this guy. And it's only reporting the hit piece part, which is 100% true. And you know, sometimes when a billionaire buys something, they tear it down and they build a new one. No laughs.
You know, yes,
it's a hobby for him.
Bulldozed.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's definitely bulldozed Twitter for sure.
Now, do you still use
it? But much less than I used to, honestly, truly. And I was very disappointed. I think the Twitter thing particularly sticks in my craw because I pride myself on understanding marketing strategy, and nothing he was doing made any sense to me in terms of marketing strategy. And if you've got $44 billion and you want to buy Twitter just to tear it to the ground and change the name, I guess you can, but probably for $20 billion, you could have built your own Twitter with whatever name you wanted and just started it on the side and saved a lot of money.
Yeah, and if you thought he was all about money, I would say, but I think it's more of an ego play. I think it's, I think, him, Bill Gates, Zuckerberg, I think they all have huge egos. But back to the ways we're sort of dishonest with each other. So anyway.
Well, the marketing, if I may interject, the marketing reminds me of like, you know, you ever see like Captain Crunch when they went like, oops, all marshmallows. And he was like, oops, all Nazis, you know. So there's a similar marketing campaign along the way, you know.
So ad hominem is attacking the person who's making the argument. Or is that right? Do I have that right before we move to the next one?
Yes, it's attacking the source instead of arguing the argument.
Can we think of
that's pretty good for a big idiot over there. Good job.
Thank you. Can we give a few more examples? Like Maura, can you think of one like on the news in the last week?
Almost daily, the current batch of congressional representatives will throw attacks one way or another, and I can only think some of the masters right now are Marjorie Taylor Greene and I think Eric Swalwell on the other side. They're both pretty good at it, and it's just rather than attacking the position, one is ill-educated, one is hypocritical, one is this, one is that, and I think that's where we're going.
So if I say you're part of the woke mob, is that?
Yeah.
That's ad hominem.
I'd say you get one.
Okay.
You get
are too. That. So that's
the classic.
Yes, that's
this week's classic.
Exactly.
Yeah. And what's interesting is that woke is supposedly empathetic and caring and loving. It's all the qualities that Jesus Christ was about. And I'd be proud. I don't want to be a woke mob. I'd rather be a woke, community center. Yeah, something like that.
I have a friend, Steve Hofstetter, who I tour with, and we call him Wokepedia, because if we have questions about if something's problematic, we can kind of go to him, be like, he's our woke detector. He's the guy that will beep loudly if it's offensive.
Yeah.
So. And he takes pride in that, so.
And he's amazing, by the way. If you want to Google Steve Hofstetter, one of the best touring comics.
Yeah, that's cool. I didn't know you were buddies.
Okay.
That's pretty cool. Yeah. I do know him, or of him.
Oh, you do? Yeah. Andrew tours with him from time to time. Okay. So the other day I was watching. So I'm sitting on my couch, not watching anything. I watch almost no cable news to just keep up with all those newspapers subscriptions, and then to look at each paragraph and go, okay, what's this one trying to say? What's that one trying to say? Maybe what's reasonable and more likely. It consumes a lot of time. And
are you getting a hard copy? Can I just ask, are you getting hard copies of these? Because that would be super cool.
I'm not. Yeah, I'm not that cool.
All right,
but I get them on my iPad. Anyway, so the other day I'm sitting, and you'll like this story, Steve. I'm sitting on the couch reading newspapers, completely tuned out of any other, smartphone distractions, pop-ups, all of that stuff. And my phone rings, and it's an old friend of ours who was really my first major market program director for a while, a guy named Rob Barnett. You know Rob. He's a headhunter. And he's written a book called Next Job, Best Job. I don't want to compete with your plugs, but I'll mention it. Anyway, Rob calls me up and he goes, "Do you see what's happening?" And I'm like, this is like people, what's happening? And I knew that Trump was being arraigned, but I have no interest in watching it. He goes, "Do you see what's happening?" And I said, no, I'm not watching any TV. He goes, "Well, you're in Vegas and there's a line, an over-under on how much Donald Trump weighs. He has to get on a scale and they're going to weigh him. And what do you think?" I'm thinking like, I don't know, 320. and then I thought, wait a minute, you're being teased that Donald Trump has to get on a scale. I'm not even sure they will make Donald Trump get on a scale. And, I can't imagine him doing that. That would be so humiliating. There's no way he would agree to that. And so it turned out, of course, it was very disappointing for the woke mob, of which most of us are at least slightly affiliated, that he didn't get on scale. He self-reported. And I remember thinking about that and going, wow, all right, and by the way, he got me. I got to watch some cable TV. So I'm like, oh, okay, this is going on. Even January 6th, my sister called me. "Do you see what's happening on TV?" And I'm going, this is my least favorite reality show of all time, but I have to watch. So I turned on, I went to the opposite of where you would go. I went to Fox. I said, I'm going to try today getting all my information from Fox and see what happens. And I learned a ton about the Biden crime family. I mean, they use
it's educational.
It's educational, and and they kept saying it ad hominem. Yeah, and but you should watch because it's super convincing. If it's the only thing you watch, like super convincing. Like I even said, well, look, they got a picture of him shaking hands with this guy who's worth a lot of money. They got a picture of him getting on a plane over here. They got a picture of him having dinner with here, and there's Joe looking like, "You're my son, I'm your dad. We're about to deposit, $25 million into," and they kept saying, and they're depositing money in offshore accounts, and they're doing all of this, and how come, they're not being indicted? And I thought, wow, okay, is the next one straw man?
Maybe that's a whataboutism, maybe?
Whataboutism?
Yeah, I was going to say false equivalency is not on your list, Bob, but
okay,
it's definitely a logical fallacy.
Well, here's appeal to ignorance is on my list. But that would,
well, that's what this podcast is doing. So
yeah. All right.
We're curing ignorance, Andrew.
Yes. So I have empathy for people who have chosen, because everybody's chosen a side. I also don't believe in a society where you think 30% of the people are idiots, because I think it's a much lower number. I think we're all on the scale of idiot somewhere. But
I think it's a higher number.
It's higher than 30. Yeah, depending on your grading curve. So anyway, thoughts on that?
I'm surprised we can't all agree that more than 30% of the population are idiots. I mean, it's probably a different group for everybody in their minds, but I'm with Andrew on this one. I think that we all secretly believe that more than 30% of the rest of the population are idiots, regardless.
And
of where
that 30% believes we're idiots.
Oh, well, maybe 20% of them and 10% from over there think that. Okay. But sure.
So
to each their
hasty
own.
Generalization is one of the things on here.
we live with that.
We've just all been lied to for the last 15 to 20 years by the major media channels, and that's really had an effect on a lot of people's ability to discern critical information and critical thinking, and they let sort of other people tell them what to think, and then they just kind of repeat that. And but as you see access to information being widened, I think that there's more hope, but the system is, as you pull away from it, it's only going to hold on stronger. But I think what is happening now is the disintegration of those systems. I mean, every TV ratings are down, so as you joke that it's all trying to get you to attack each other, it's the same thing with Sports Center. Used to just be highlights and top plays, and now they're going, LeBron James is the worst player ever, and they have a guy, he's the greatest, and that's how they get you to watch TV, because you go, this guy is wrong. Ugh.
But is it a good thing that we have much more and more media, and that there's no bar, there's no bar that you have to go over to entry, and there's no curators, and anyone can literally start their own news channel from their phone? Because we used to have trusted sources. We used to have 3 or 4 networks, and if they said something that was actionable, they'd be sued. They would actually, oh, wait a minute, that just happened.
Yeah. and having all of that access it's a beautiful thing on the one hand, but like you just mentioned, without having any kind of check on, is this reality or is this complete BS? That's the problem, and it's so intractable because we identify now. We all, no matter what your opinion is, we identify with Fox News. I mean, it's like, that's who I am. That's who my people are, or vice versa. And
yeah, I'm pretty sure you're vice versa, but I get it. Yeah, you understand. No, but you're empathetic to those people.
I have no interest in going and watching someone who might have another opinion, because that's antithetical to my whole person. And that's why that's why the Grand Canyon gets bigger.
And yet it's never been any different, really. I'm listening to Bob talk about all this access to information, and I'm hearing the Pope going, this printing press thing, it just gives people books to the masses. And is it good that they have all that information? I think we should limit it to hand-scribed illustrated manuscripts. I think, and they were right to an extent, because right after the printing press came a whole bunch of revolutions and beheadings of those people. But we're not really in a different place than we were when William Randolph Hearst was ginning up wars in the late 1800s. The major difference is that because of social media, A, it happens much faster, and B, we still haven't learned all the defenses that we learned to books, to newspapers, to magazines, to radio, to television. We learned to be selective in those media, but it took us a long time to figure out how that media worked and how we were going to respond to it as a society. And now we have this social media, which not only is new-ish, but is changing form on a weekly basis.
And it's X this week, by the way. I just heard it. Change the name to X.
Yes.
It's interesting, Steve's point too, our defenses to these things. You used to have to open a book or turn on the TV, but now these things are just passively giving us this information as we kind of scroll around, and we don't even have to be looking for that information, but it can reach you now. So I like his point. We just haven't quite adapted. Well, some of us are better than others, but it's probably late for your generation.
It's late for us, yes. To Steve's point,
interesting point.
To Steve's point, which is one of my favorite sayings, is the more things change, the more they stay the same. Human nature hasn't changed. Our DNA, our tribal DNA, is what it was. But there's another saying, some Greek philosopher, Heracles, 500 BC, said the only constant is change, and you will never stand in the same river twice because the water has moved. And so to counter a little counterpoint to your point, which I completely agree with, is that you mentioned it's faster, and it's like saying, well, nuclear power is just another kind of power, and maybe it'll blow up the world.
Yes.
And so I have a genuine worry that because when I see first off, when I meet I have probably 50% of my friends are conservative. I don't get them on this podcast. I should. And there are values that they care about. They're the kind of people that come and tow your truck out of a ditch at 3:00 in the morning. They're really good. They're not the 30%. They're not stupid. They are educated in different ways about different things based on the media choices they make, which are based on, just like radio stations used to program certain formats to get certain segments of the audience and play certain hit records over and over again. I mean, Biden Crime Family is my favorite album right now on Fox. And and so yes, so these catchphrases and woke mob and all of that stuff, I got to give the right credit. They are way better at branding than the left. I mean, there is no news story saying, here's what was reported here, and there is no factual evidence about it, because that would be responding to it, and no one wants to respond to, Biden doesn't want to go, well, I'm not a crime family. He's not going to have the checkers speech that Richard Nixon did. So,
I would just add the one that did seem to go and stick, and you still hear it pretty much daily, is the big lie. They were able to come up with that.
That is a pretty good phrase. Yes.
Yeah.
And it is go ahead, Steve.
Oh no, please. All right.
I'm a bulldozer. I run over everybody. If I give you room, please take it.
Well, shut up then for a second.
Yes.
If you don't interrupt, you won't ever get a chance to talk.
I've been criticized for this my whole life. Yes.
So here's what's going on to a large extent is that there's one party that's actually responding to popular needs, and there's one party that is a little out of step with the marketplace right now. I mean, if you just want to look at it from a marketing point of view, the Republicans have kind of one foot on the dock and one foot on the boat, and the boat is leaving. And that boat is stuff like abortion and book banning and those items, which, say what you will about book banning. I mean, my book's been hasn't been banned, but it's been thrown out of a couple of school districts because
How to shoot video that doesn't suck. Available on which book company?
On which what?
Well, how to shoot video that doesn't suck. Just Google it, right?
Yeah, it's available everywhere. Everywhere. Workman publishes it. So
okay.
But it's been like, small town libraries have had arguments about whether to stock it or not because of the word suck. But my point bigger point is that there are popular issues. And if you survey Americans, you can see what they are: abortion, some kind of solution to gun control, climate change, and freedom of speech, not banning books, that kind of stuff. These are top tier issues. And one of the two parties has not got a real response that deals with human majorities on those issues. And so they've kind of hitched themselves to a personality cult. And as a result,
hold on a second, I'm going to guess. Are you New York Times or Wall Street Journal? I'm going with New York Times.
I'm just describing. See, that's an ad hominem attack.
I know. Good. I just did one for you. That's what we're required.
I'm just describing what I see. Now, I'm not saying right or wrong. I'm just saying from a strategic point of view, they're out of step, but they're kind of stuck with the guy they brought to the dance, and they don't know how to get rid of him. And that's a big problem for them, and it's just going to get wider and wider over this next little while. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
This sports commentary is brought to you by A Wider Stance. Yes, Maura, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I everything you said, you can see exactly that's what's going on. And yet, ironically, the guy they brought to the dance is none of those things. And that's been my big question since the beginning. I mean, I'm not going to. I mean, what I observe, he has shown no real moral high ground. In fact, the opposite. He isn't a family guy. In fact, he's evidence to the opposite. It's a huge puzzle. I truly don't get it.
Tremendously huge. And I think that the easiest way I can try and explain that is that we no longer have news. We have reality shows. And he's the greatest reality show host of all time. He's the Elvis of reality shows. And and that people, since there's so much information, so widely scattered with so many different viewpoints, and since the 24-hour news cycle is now the 24-minute news cycle at best, people go for the personality. They go for the patriarchal figure in our tribal history. The big, bad asshole guy kept your village safe by going to war with everybody who was the others. And Donald is, he fights against those that are trying to take stuff away from you. And that's important. If you believe that people are trying to take, there's a hilarious cartoon that shows a bunch of kings up in a big castle looking down at and the people are about to revolt, and one of the kings looks at the other king and goes, well, how do we prevent them from revolting and overthrowing us? And he said, just convince the people with the pitchforks that the people with the torches are trying to steal their pitchforks, and vice versa, and you will do it. So part of why I even wanted to have this discussion is this whole mode we have where we almost all go into talking about the other side feels like it feeds the monster more than helps. So I want you each to find a conservative friend with a MAGA hat and become their buddy, like a Big Brother program, something like that, and I'm saying that a little facetiously, but I mean, I feel like back in the 60s, Andrew, this is ancient history for you. We had this phrase, peace and love. Andrew's going to go to sleep now. And we had music that that protested bad things going on, and our culture basically got people inspired about having better values. Of course, we all forgot, and now we watch Fox News. But back then, we had that, and it sort of feels like, well, when I quit drinking, when people go into AA, or anonymous 12-step program, they say they got sick and tired of being sick and tired. And maybe, and maybe Andrew, you have some insight into this, maybe we're at a point in time now where people are going to go, I'm really sick of this same old trick.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I'm trying to be less informed. I don't click on their bait. Because again, it goes even back to, like, if you want to argue about Elon Musk, it's like I could pull up some different things that I've read in different places, but I almost like I didn't see it happen, so I just don't believe really much of it. I don't know, and it doesn't really affect me. So it's just like, he's gonna win or he's gonna lose, and I've got my own battles to fight. So, good. God bless. Good luck. I mean,
not my business.
I guess my point
peace
is,
and
like,
love wasn't a good idea. Just not my business.
Yeah.
Not going to worry about it.
Hey. Well, you again, because there's 100,000 channels, including every single person who wants to be famous on Facebook. Hi, your attention is the only currency. So if you give that to people, it's almost like giving them your attention is what they're after. And so I fight back by going, get out of here. And I'm not going to read any side of it, because I kind of know what you know, what the choices are and what's at stake here. So all the you know, the mid-level arguments are not really of concern to me, you know.
Not going to give them your eyeballs.
Personally.
Yeah.
It's just not what I'm going to, you know, waste my life wondering about. Did Donald Trump get the right weight in? Oh, like, no, he's a fat, like I can see with my eyes that he's fat. So like, I'm not really gonna, it's not worth my time to troll people and go, you know, if I think of a great joke, I'll, you know, whatever. But,
well, I love the Jabba the Hutt picture. It says Jabba the Hutt and has a picture of Jabba the Hutt, and it says 6'3", 215 pounds. And I mean,
maybe they weighed him without the makeup and without the wig and all the other stuff. But
sure. But you can see that it's joking material, though. Yes, Maura,
and I would love to hear Andrew's take on the mugshot, because that's gold. I don't care who you are. That was gold.
I mean, he looks like a big dumb idiot. I don't know. It doesn't. I'm just not interested in like the little like mockery and the, you know, it's we spent like, as a guy who wrote every single COVID joke I could think of, you know, like I just got sick of all this stuff where it's like, you're wrong. And then 3 weeks later, you're wrong. And then there's like, you know, again, we just not learning how to take in people will read a study and quote that as an exact science. And it's like, well, you take 7 studies and then you make up a whole thesis. You know, each study is, you know, I don't know, I'm just kind of rambling at this point, but it's just everyone's an idiot except me is the point of this.
Well, you're refusing to give it your time, and like father, like son, in a certain event. Like there I was, not watching the arraignment. How could I? Being a media guy. And I guess we're not getting in the direction I was hoping we would get in, which is empathy for those we disagree with and understanding of some of the weaknesses in our own points of view. So let me give you a couple of examples. When COVID-19 hit, there was a lot of control of the media. There was a lot of there were a lot of decisions.
I had videos
made
taken off of YouTube for jokes, you know,
for jokes about COVID,
misinformation.
Yeah,
and you know,
and when the vaccines, when the vaccines came out, they were touted as being fantastic with no side effects. And when the idea that the virus could have been developed in a lab came out, anyone who thought that was a conspiracy theorist. And by the way, this last few sentences is proof that I watch Fox News. So, some of those things kind of turned out to be true. And Hunter Biden's laptop did have some embarrassing stuff on it. I don't know if he belongs in prison or not. I happen to say what's in the court system. I was brought up to believe the court system was somewhat independent, although, you know, the president could call and get someone out of a parking ticket, but I don't think he could get them out of a 30-year prison sentence. That's, you know, naive of me, maybe. So think about some of the stuff you guys, and me too, because I play devil's advocate, but think about some of the stuff you believe and try to understand why someone else would not be convinced. Global warming isn't. I'll just throw that out there too. Pick one. Raise your hand. Who wants to go first?
What's the assignment here? Why would someone not believe?
No,
just want to clarify the premise of this.
Yeah, the premise is, think of something you believe is pretty scientifically factual, or that you believed, and then look at the fallacies in some of the things you believe, because those are the arguments that are used.
Here's my counter. I don't know. Your 3 favorite words. I'm not out there testing the ocean and going, it's hotter. I'm just listening to what they say on the TV box. I don't live in a hurricane zone. My experience is it's been hotter every year. I bought my first air conditioner last year. It's a big step for me in Seattle.
That's all the proof you need.
I mean, my anecdotal evidence suggests that things are getting, but again, I
want to
drive a
object to the
Prius,
premise
so fuck
here.
you guys. I'm saving the world over here.
Steve's going to object to the premise. Don't be sure you don't ad hominem
premise.
attack me when you're doing it. Go ahead.
No, I'm not. I'm going to object to the premise logically. So
okay.
I think it's a fine question to ask, and we should ask if we're being empathetic in a way that allows us to see other people for human beings of value, that allows us to try to understand a little bit about how they think. But I get off when we take something like climate change caused by man-made interference with the climate over a period of years, where the research is not even in the neighborhood of ambiguous. It's not even an eighth ambiguous. It's not even a 15th ambiguous. It's like everybody understands this. And we live in a country where we have the only major party in power that denies climate change. This is the only one, the Republican Party. So I have a problem when I'm asked to empathize with something that's obviously incorrect, as opposed to try to respect people one-on-one as human beings, which I try to do all the time.
Yeah. So tell me why you're so sure it's correct. Just give me some more details. Pretend I'm a guy working on your car. I just had a country hit go to #1, first person to top 100 of the Billboard.
Yes, who denies, by the way, that denies that.
Yes, he's not a right-wing tool.
Song.
I saw that.
I love this. I want to talk about him all day, but yeah.
Okay, we'll get there.
A great song too.
But
so
tell me,
why
are you sure? You personally, when did you decide I believe all of these scientists? Because scientists, were a bit wrong about COVID-19 when they didn't know. They said they didn't.
Yes. Scientists were wrong about COVID-19 because we were watching research and development and panic in real time over the course of 2 years. Climate change is something that's 60 plus years old in terms of research. And we know, because there are people suing them, that companies like Exxon and some others had climate change data that they intentionally lied about, much like the tobacco companies did about cancer, dating back to the 70s and 80s. And they had this data because they were making their own economic projections about climate change.
Effects.
I also have a friend who's a NASA scientist who studies climate change, and we've talked at length about what the prognosis is and what works in his personal research, not personal, but his NASA research that he's done in Greenland. And I've read a great deal of people whose authority I respect, which doesn't mean that you have to respect them, but people who I believe are credible on the science.
So you've put in time
over the last bunch of years. You bet.
You've put in time, you've put in effort, much like me trying to read 6 newspapers and try and get a sense of, what's bullshit, what's not.
Here's how I know climate change is real, is that Republicans don't believe in it.
Yeah, hold on one second. I'm going to get to the Republican side, and you can blather all you want. But first, I want to point out this elitist Steve Stockman. I want to point out a little something about Steve Stockman. What community college did you go to, Steve?
I went to Onondaga County Community College in Syracuse, New York, where I grew up.
Okay. And then?
I majored in. I didn't go. I went to Brown University.
Brown University.
Yes, I did. Yeah.
So not everybody.
And this, by the way,
as a liberal, you should.
Yeah.
It doesn't make you wrong, and I'm not going to ad hominem you. But as a liberal, you should understand that you have advantages that other people don't have, and you certainly, if people are homeless immigrants, you want their disadvantages to be respected and to somehow have a safety net for them. I would say that people without your educational background, they have 2 disadvantages. They have one is that they don't have time for that education. I mean, most of the people I'm talking about, I know, get up, go to work, come home at 7 o'clock, and can't afford streaming television, much less subscribing to newspapers. So everything they get comes on their little phone or on Fox, or whichever one they've chosen, and that's the world they're taught. So it's not that they're stupid. any more than you're stupid about how to fix a pickup truck. But
yeah. And please don't put those words in my mouth. I didn't say they were stupid.
Yeah.
I said
you
that
said 30%.
I'm not going to empathize with their position because it is incorrect.
Well,
that the facts and science do not bend to fit someone's opinion. They just don't.
Empathizing with someone's position doesn't mean, to me anyway, agreeing that they're right about something they're wrong about. It more means understanding why they are the way they are and thinking differently about how to influence people. And I'm afraid we have to do it.
It usually happens because their paycheck depends on it.
Yeah. That's the old, that's one of my favorites.
But some of these same people that you're talking about, Bob, who are the salt of the earth, not as well educated as some of us and can fix a pickup truck. These people may or may not even be paying much attention to climate change. And they're not the big problem with climate change, regardless of their opinion. The big problem with climate change is the people who are manipulating them from on high, like, say, all of the Republicans in the Republican debate who denied the existence of climate change, even though they're all also Ivy League educated and have had plenty of time to study it and know for sure that it's a real thing. So the salt of the earth is not the problem here.
Yeah. So the problem is that media appeals to an audience by telling them what they want to hear. How do you fix that? Because they're playing the Biden crime family hit record. And the global warming is just designed to hurt you and hurt our companies. And we can't prove it was caused by man. And even if we could, why would we destroy our economy for all these liberal solar panel projects? Because there's no proof. It's like arguing in court. By the way, when OJ went to court, remember O.J. Simpson?
Yeah, vaguely.
I think most of us had reached a verdict in our heads, right? But he still had a trial.
We've reached a verdict in our heads as Americans about climate change because 76% of the population calls it one of their top issues and they're terrified about it. The problem is not how do we convince the scientifically wrong, who either aren't paying attention or for other reasons choose to believe, or at least say they believe, something different. The question is, how do we start implementing policy changes to help move things in the right direction? So a lot of what you're talking about, when you come back to media on this, is we've created social media. We still don't exactly know how to make it work for us. We're about to have artificial intelligence, which makes it even worse. And because of this acceleration, we may be getting to the point where our technological advances outstrip our ability to deal with them, in which case, we will kill ourselves. This is what the printing press wasn't so bad. It was just a few revolutions.
Let's try to end the podcast on a happier. Yeah, let's try to end the podcast on a happier note than that. We will kill ourselves. All right, thanks, folks. Hey, come back next week. Let's lead into Maura a little bit. Maura, you're the mom of 2 teens. You have also probably purchased a first-time air conditioner in Seattle sometime during raising these kids.
We haven't. We are the holdouts, it seems. We looked into it and said, well, maybe next year. So we have a basement, we have fans, and we're dealing with it. But
how do you feel about this? What we're leaving to our kids? Andrew, I'm not too concerned about. He's already almost 40.
I'll tell you what, my kids are so freaking smart. They're so much better prepared than I think we were. They are so much more aware. And my daughter especially, she's very verbal, has been all her life. You get in a discussion with her and it turns into a debate, you better darn well bring your facts. And I feel really good about both of my kids. And I think that's where my optimism comes from, because, and I will say this, granted, I live in a very small corner of the country where, you know, people generally believe in climate change and, you know, understand that policies need to be changed. And in order to change those, we really do need to vote, and we need to vote for the people who will, you know, pledge to make the changes. But anyway, it's something Steve said earlier made me feel optimistic. Maybe it was the printing press. But I think the kids, I think, you know, they're smart. And, you know, I still get on Twitter X and I see these kids there's a kid named David Hogg. You guys know him. He's one of the survivors of one of the mass shootings, and I'm blanking out. It's not Newtown. It's
Parkland, I think. Yeah.
Florida.
Parkland, yeah.
Parkland.
Yeah.
Yes. Those are the kind of people that are coming up that make me feel like we might be okay. We might be okay. 'Cause, you know, they're, you know, unapologetic. F you if you don't believe this is happening, but we're stepping into our, you know, it's going to be our world in a couple of years. And I think that's the way it's going to have to be, because, you know, face it, the generation that's in there now that's what led us to this, right? I mean,
should there be a mandatory retirement age in politics? It feels like there should be.
God bless Dianne Feinstein. Yeah. I remember when I was a reporter in San Francisco when she was voted in, and I remember standing out in front of her gorgeous, beautiful mansion, and you know, she was just the goddess of, you know, everything. And to see her, you know, now it's just, you know, the history that she has after, you know, Harvey Milk and, you know, becoming the mayor, and then you know, going into politics and being a real leader. Yeah, I agree. We do need to have some kind of a mandatory, you know, age. And, you know, if you can't vote aye on a bill without somebody assisting you, it's time.
Well, I look forward to, I don't really look forward to my generation passing away and being completely gone, but I think it's going to be good for humanity. Oh. All right. I did want to.
Well, as we dismantle all these news outlets and changing of the guard and such, that is what allows somebody like Oliver Anthony Music to come out of nowhere and to just sing in his backyard with his little dogs. And, you know, back then, you know, Bob, what happened to the gatekeepers preventing this music from coming out, you know? Yeah. None of this hippity hop would have happened under my watch, you know, but
I think I did call it hippity hop.
You like the song? Point. Did you what were your thoughts on this guy?
Oh, the one, what's the guy's name? He just went to #1 on the Billboard Hot 100.
Yeah,
right?
Oliver Anthony.
So I first heard about him from a blogger that I that religiously follow, who said this guy's really striking a chord. So the first thing I saw was the video of him in his pickup truck where it was raining, and he just opened, you know, he just started the video and started talking to the camera, and I was mesmerized by his.
That looks like a movie. The rain, the sound effects. I mean, that looks like it just feels too pristine. And it feels like I'm about to be lied to here. I don't know. I'm very suspicious.
But by the way, Steve, did you see that video yet?
I didn't. I've seen the song a few times. I thought it was quite good.
Okay, the video doesn't suck.
Check out the video. Yeah. It's got the steering wheel in the foreground of the shot. It's perfectly just a minute into him starting to talk. The rain just gently drizzles on the top of his pickup. You can hear the dogs hounding in the. It's just it's
beautiful.
Something's not right.
And Andrew, you may have a really good point there, because it seems like all the internet begets us is tons of pop, and that nothing cool that moves culture and society can be discovered. And maybe, to Steve's point earlier, maybe we're just early in this revolutionary process, and we're going to enter another Renaissance age of great artistic and culturally relevant social content.
I've got tens of millions of views on these. Don't say that they won't show us anything great here, because I'm
you're already doing reasonably well, yeah. But I mean you're the best. You're the best thing that ever existed on the internet.
I'm just comic relief here.
But I guess what I'm saying, because I feel that the current business model is broken, because there's just two kinds of stations, and there's just one side or the other side. And why I keep looking towards empathy and towards people getting along is because, well, two reasons. One is I think it's got to be grassroots. I think it's going to happen in younger generations, like Maura describing her kids, and they're going to talk to their friends. And the same way a streaming TV show becomes huge, not because Netflix or anybody advertised it, but because word of mouth said, this is good. This is, this will make you feel good and make your life better. And I think that making us feel good and make our lives better is going to somehow organically happen that way. And I think as we're winding down the show, I think that's maybe a happy thought. Maura, I had asked you if there was anything you wanted to talk about. I'm going to give you a whole 30 seconds.
I talk about having a really cool experience, and I know that not everybody has the same experience, but I met a family member thanks to genetic testing. And I just want to say it was really cool. And I'm really sorry for the people who had a knock on the door and said, hi, I'm your son, on the opposite side of that, because ours was a real joyful and happy, meeting and reunion. And
did they knock on your door, or did you knock on their door?
It was a really, really neat experience. They knocked. It was a mutual knock after 50 years. Oh. It was pretty cool.
That's why I changed my phone number every Father's Day, just in case.
That's cool.
I know not everybody gets that.
And you think you'll be nice lifelong? Outcome, but it was you're family now, right?
Yeah, and he walked in the door, and I would have known him anywhere.
Nice.
Anywhere. It was really amazing.
All right, I will close this with this story. I come and visit Steve in LA. Our grandchildren are in Malibu Canyon, and so I've spent a lot more time there in the last, since we moved to Vegas, of course. On a recent trip, I reconnected with one of the really founders of our Twisted Christmas albums, the guy who did all of the orchestral arrangements. He put choirs together to sing on, all of our big number songs. His name is Roger Treese. Just an amazing guy. And I hadn't talked to him in 30, 40 years. And we sat down, and I knew he was pretty religious because we got all our Christmas stuff from choirs, and they felt a little guilty about doing it, as I recall back then. Anyway, he handed me a book about Jesus at a Starbucks in Calabasas. And I thought, you know what? I have an illness. I may not be here that long. I was brought up with these values. I'm going to read it. Roger is, by the way, the guy who recorded the song Walking Around in Women's Underwear. He put that whole thing together. It turned out to be a very woke song because the Seattle Men's Gay Chorus performed it for years. And so I've started reading. Yeah. I've started reading the book. And I can't think of a cable news channel that Jesus would watch. I cannot.
The title?
Who is this man? It's called.
What's the book called?
And it's all about loving everyone, and especially the downtrodden, especially foreigners, especially people who are cast out by society. So I just want to pass that on as an interesting. That sort of spurred this conversation a little, because I keep thinking we've got to stop being played as a hit record, one side against the other side. Somehow. You don't have to give up your opinions or change them, but be nice to someone on the other side. It's just that. And listen. And
Instead of calling someone an idiot,
pat them on the head.
Pat them on the head and go, "Oh, you're so stupid. It's so cute."
Yes.
Or to Maura's earlier point, vote for the people who embody those
Jesus politicians are really, they're the money counters.
Yeah.
They're really fucking hard to find. And I hate to swear right after this Jesus book, but yeah, they're all...
Well, this is, again, I take issue with the Make America Great slogan. And it's like, if you believe in that, America is just you. So it's your, we're putting hope in these false idols. And I think what, the younger generation understands now, because we've been fucked over by your generation.
You're welcome.
Self-reliance, right? Is just going, everything I ever want in life is going to be up to me, and no one's going to give it to me. And so it's on, if you want to make America great again, that's on you by being kind to your neighbor. And, it doesn't mean you have to agree with them or go, you know what, maybe the earth isn't going to get hotter. And when, I'll dump this pollution in the river, that's fine. But certainly a little bit of love goes a long way.
All right.
Come for the ad hominem attack, stay for Jesus.
That's perfect. That's the title of the podcast.
I love it.
Let's actually name it that. All right. Thank you, Steve Stockman, the author of the book How to Shoot Video That Doesn't Suck, banned in Florida, and Maura Gallucci, news gal, Supermom, from 2 huge radio stations in Seattle, plus you get stuck with our show for a little while. Thank you, Maura. I really appreciate having you.
This has been great.
Yeah, and Andrew Rivers. Andrew, we didn't fight enough. We got to fight more.
You didn't say anything stupid this time.
Thanks.
Well, Steve did most of the back and forth. It was I was enjoying, I just mock you, and he comes you with like a PowerPoint presentation of facts and numbers, and I'm like, oh, that's
I know. He's so good at that.
I've been studying for days.
Yeah, and he filibusters pretty good sometimes, too. All right, common logical fallacies everyone should know. We did ad hominem. We sort of did straw man. Appeal to authority, asserting that something must be true because it's backed up by someone who's allegedly an authority. Slippery slope. And by the way, that one's used against global warming, by the way. Slippery slope, taking an argument from the first sensible premise to an undesirable or extreme conclusion. I pride myself in that one. Appeal to ignorance, when it is said an argument must be true if it cannot be proven false. It was a perfect phone call. We did nothing wrong. False dilemma, when 2 choices are presented as the only possible options when there are many choices that exist. Hasty generalization. I think we all excelled at that tonight.
Bread and butter, baby.
Yeah. Red herring. That occurs when someone deliberately attempts to move the issue under discussion to a new irrelevant topic. Bandwagon fallacy occurs when someone is said to be true or good simply because they are popular. And appeal to tradition, when one claims that something must be good or true because it has been practiced for a long time. Anyway, Google these if you want. Thank you, Brown University Ivy League graduate Steve, Maura Gallucci, and Andrew Rivers. I'm Bob Rivers. Thanks for listening.